All right, we're going to go live here. Welcome, everybody. I'm Chuck Holton, and I am in Jerusalem tonight. We just got back from the southern border near the Gaza Strip. Let me adjust this camera just a little bit. And we had an eventful day, to be sure. It was a lot of driving, but you know, it takes a couple hours to get from here down to the Gaza Strip. And we went down and we went to Ashdod and met with the tactical unit of the Israeli border police. The tactical unit from the Israeli border police is kind of like what we would call the BORTAC unit in the United States. It is kind of like a SWAT team, but they also have intelligence unit. They have a canine unit, and they don't actually do as much stuff on the border as our border patrol would, because they really don't have a problem up until October 7th with people jumping the fence or cutting through the fence or anything like that. Their border fence was very robust, and so we can talk more about the failures that allowed 1,500 terrorists to blow holes in the fence at a dozen different locations and come through and murder 1,400 people on October 7th. There will be books written about those failures, without a doubt. And when you talk to the commanders of the troops, when you talk to everyday citizens here in Israel, that is a major topic of discussion about how did they fail so badly. They just can't believe that that this has happened. Virtually everybody you talk to here knows somebody who was killed or has been taken hostage. I talked to one guy today, a part of the border police, and their unit was one of the units that responded immediately when they finally heard about the incursion back on October 7th. His unit was responsible for taking out more than 80 terrorists, and he himself, the guy I talked to, had killed 5 in the battles that followed to retake some of the kibbutzim down in the south. So, you know, these are guys that are going to be dealing with this for a long time. Everybody in Israel is somewhat traumatized now. And not just, I know that not just because people have told me that they're traumatized, but I know it because everybody's on edge. Everywhere you go, especially us as journalists, people are wary, they're suspicious, want to know who you are and what you're doing there. Of course, when I'm doing a live broadcast, I need to be someplace that's fairly quiet. And I'm going to put my glasses on here so I can read these comments real quick. Yeah, God will destroy the enemies of Israel. Tell you what, here's what we'll do. If you'll save your comments and questions till the end, I'm only going to go for about 10 or 15 minutes tonight. And then I will give you a chance. We'll do a Q&A. How about that? We'll do a question and answer session. So if you stay on, in about 10 minutes, I will go to a quick question and answer session and let you ask me questions about what is going on here. Let me just tell you what we did today first. Like I was saying, people are wary when I'm doing a live hit or a broadcast like this. I've got to find a place that's got a nice backdrop. I've got to find a place that's quiet, that's peaceful, and you wouldn't believe the things. I don't know why, but I've been doing this job for about 20 years, and it's like every time, without fail, when you turn on the camera and start filming something noisy shows up. A helicopter shows up, a screaming baby, a drunk guy. It never fails. It's just part of this business. So we try to find a kind of nice out-of-the-way place where there's not a lot of people and there's something nice to look at and we can set up. We also have to keep in mind the bandwidth in that spot. So very often you find the perfect place and then you get down there and there's no cell phone coverage and there's no bandwidth for the broadcast, and so we got to go find somewhere else. But here, as in many conflicts, because people are very on edge after what's happened, strangers in a place, standing out in a field, or like today we were on a kid's playground in an area that had been kind of evacuated, it tends to raise some suspicions. And so almost without fail, since we've been here, every time we set up the camera somewhere other than this balcony that I'm standing on, within about 10 minutes, we'll have a police car show up, and there goes one right there. There's been a lot of police cars tonight. We'll have a police car or 2 or 5 show up, and a bunch of people get out and come over and want to know what we're doing there. I told the story on the last live about what happened to us up in the north the night before, a couple nights ago, when I think it was a civilian, maybe a reserve policeman or a mall cop or a security guard, so I don't know what it was, but this guy, that's as close as I've come to thinking I was about to get shot in a long time. He was very, very angry and did not speak a word of English, and so we couldn't explain to him that we were just journalists. Even though we had media all over our car, we had, whatever. But so it's happened a couple times a day as well. We'd pull over, we'd get out, we'd start to set up, and somebody shows up and a couple policemen want to know who we are, what we're doing there. And we always seem to luck out and get the guys who speak no English whatsoever. I've been really amazed since we've been here at how many people speak English. It's very easy usually to find somebody who speaks not just a little English, but speaks perfect American English, because there are so many Jews who have lived in the United States. Just a minute, I'm going to close this door here. I'm going to close that. So we did get sort of, I think we've been detained 3 times in the last 5 days. And that's just goes with, we have these cards that I showed you last night. They're media cards that, when the police show up, we pull this out and we show it to the policeman, and it says, Chuck Holton has been vetted by the GPO, the public office or something, general public office. And, he's cleared to commit journalism around in Israel. The card will get me through checkpoints. Usually you show that, then you're fine. It's cool. But we seem to get the guys who have a problem with wherever we are or whatever we're doing and want us to leave. Today I was literally about 60 seconds from going live with on the 700 Club with Gordon Robertson, and the police showed up and were like, "You have to move now." And I was standing there, live on camera, and I just said, "Give me 5 minutes," and they were like, "Okay, 5 minutes, no problem." So they were cool. You can't blame these people. They are on edge. People are very suspicious of foreigners, of strangers, outsiders. I don't think I look very much like a terrorist, but I don't look very much like a Jew apparently either. And so I get some suspicion. The rest of our team as well. Pray for us. Pray that there will not be any misunderstandings between us and the police and the officials. We've had a lot of people approach us who obviously know from looking at us that we're not Jews, and come up to us and say, "Where are you from? What are you doing here?" And we tell them we're journalists, and they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for telling our story." We've had many who have said, "So what is your angle on the story?" Because they are a little suspicious of the journalists that they've seen on TV, especially after there's been so much propaganda and misinformation that's come out. I wanted to just talk very quickly about the state of readiness of these forces. Um, it's been an amazing, you imagine, just over a week ago, they had no idea they were going to do this. And now they're talking about kicking off a military operation with nearly 500,000 troops in the space of a week. So if you wonder why they haven't kicked off the ground invasion yet, this is a massive combined arms invasion. It's a massive operation that's got to be undertaken. When military planners plan these things out, usually they take years to plan something like that, if not, I mean, at the very least, quite a few months. They've got to figure out what their targets are. They've got to figure out what their objectives are. They've got to figure out who's going to take what, and who's going to resupply them, and where are the medics going to be, and there's just a lot of moving parts. A military is an extremely complex machine, and so don't be surprised that they haven't gone in yet. They are taking their time, and they want to do it right. They're not going to just throw their troops in there into a meat grinder, because Hamas has been planning for this for a long time. And that means that they've been fortifying positions inside Gaza, getting ready for a big fight. There's over 300 miles of tunnels underground in Gaza. So the IDF is not about to just waste its sons and daughters on a poorly planned, poorly executed operation. They're going to take the time that they need to plan it and execute it so that they can minimize the loss of life on both sides. They want to also give the civilians a chance to move out. They are kind of concerned about all this aid that we're talking about bringing in, allowing in. We asked them, I guess we, being the President of the United States, asked them to allow in from Egypt, because aid might look like aid, but those trucks, I don't know that anybody is inspecting all those trucks that are coming in, and there could very well be a lot of munitions hidden in there. It's almost a foregone conclusion that there will be. It's just, that's the nature of this kind of conflict, and that's the nature of the way things work in the Middle East. So the longer this goes on, there's a balance. The longer it goes on, the hungry, more desperate, more weak the Hamas, the people left in the Gaza Strip, get. But also, it's possible that they could be shipping in more. They're going to have more time to dig defenses, set IEDs and booby traps, et cetera, et cetera. Don't believe for a minute that the IDF doesn't understand that. They know that. They are sure that they are walking into a wood chipper here, and they are building a plan to do so effectively and as safely as possible. But as we went out today and talked to the soldiers on the ground, we got within 2 kilometers of the border with Gaza, down near Sderot. We went out with the FAI, which is a Frontier Alliance International. That's Dalton Thomas's organization, which is headquartered in Israel. And we went. They were giving out socks. They were giving out power banks. They were giving out underwear, cigarettes, you name it. Just trying to help supply the troops. And it's not because the IDF is not able to take care of its troops. It's because the IDF has been overwhelmed by the response. When they put out the call for reservists, they asked for, I think, 300,000. And they say that they got 160% response, meaning they got 60% more than they were planning on. People coming in. I was at the airport the other day, and you understand that, first of all, military service is compulsory here in Israel. I think they have to serve 2 years. And it's sort of traditional that after you finish your 2 years of service, you take a gap year. You take a year off, you save your money up while you're in the military, and then you take a year off and you go backpacking around the world and grow your hair out and just enjoy being alive. So all of those kids are being recalled and are coming back from all over the world. At the airport, they're showing up with their backpacks. They're tanned, they're tattooed, they're dreadlocked. These guys have been off partying, enjoying themselves, and now they're coming home. And within 4 days, they're in uniform, they're carrying a gun, and they're up at the northern or the southern border getting ready for this operation. Now, these people have been trained. They've spent a couple years in the military, and so they know what they need to do, but they are training up. And everywhere you go, you see military equipment, military people, everywhere, moving around, getting in place. Today we got to go down and help give out some, just necessities to the people, the troops down there. And they were very, very grateful. They specifically were grateful to the Christian organizations who have stood by Israel and are standing with Israel now. And that was nice to see. This has really brought the country together. There are people who own restaurants who are, you walk up to the door and the door says closed, but you can see them inside. They are packing food into bags, and they're taking those bags out to the bases and giving them out to the troops. So everybody in Israel is pulling together to win this war, because they know this is an existential threat, and they have got to do something. Everybody feels like they've got to do something to help. And that's really cool, okay? So I said I was going to go about 10 minutes, and then we would take questions. I haven't been able to read all these comments that people have been leaving because I'm old and I've got to use my glasses, and I was standing too far away. So I'm going to see if I can turn on the messages here, if I can figure out how to do that. There we go. All right, so if you have any questions, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Let's see here. I have people asking questions in Vietnamese. Don't speak Vietnamese, sorry. Continuous prayers. Thank you for all your prayers. Thank you very much. We are doing our best to bring you full coverage of this conflict. We've got a much larger team than usual here. I don't usually get to come to Israel because we have a bureau here with its own reporters and news people and stuff like that. Actually, the office is right behind me in that building right down there. That's our studio. So I don't usually get to come to Israel, but because of this, they asked me to come in and sort of fill in, and I'm happy to do so, although I wish I was here under better circumstances. While we see if anybody has any questions, let's go ahead and, okay, any word on hostages? I have not personally heard any word on the hostages other than to see that they've identified at least 30 children that are being held hostage in Gaza. What worries me is that somehow they will figure out a way to move those hostages out of Gaza and to Iran or someplace like that. Is Israel accepting foreign volunteers to join their military? I have not heard of any non-Jews, non-Israelis who are joining the military, except for in very limited and very special circumstances, mostly like medical personnel and stuff like that. They probably have some people who are maybe doing advise and assist kind of things from the U.S. military and that sort of thing. I've seen some U.S. troops around, but not in a combat role or anything like that. So it's not like Ukraine, where they formed a legion, an international legion, right, that where people could join up. I don't think they feel like they need that. They are overwhelmed just trying to find uniforms for all of the people who are joining, who are showing up, that are Jews. So they don't really need that. Jeremy Charles asked, do you think Gaza will be invaded in the next few days? I do. I do think Gaza will be invaded in the next few days. And this other question, why hasn't a ground war started yet? If you must have just come on. I was just talking about that at the beginning of this video. The reason that I think the ground war hasn't started yet is because a massive combined forces operation of this magnitude, of this scale, takes a tremendous amount of planning if you don't want to just throw your people to the wolves. If you don't want to just feed your army into a wood chipper, you got to figure out how to approach the wood chipper safely. And they've got to figure out where their targets are. You know, what are we sending our guys in there to do? We're not just going to put them on line with rifles and have them march into Gaza. That's not how it works. Each unit has got to have a specific objective. You know, you go take over this school, you go take this hospital, you go safeguard this area over here. You guys look for hostages in these tunnels, et cetera, et cetera. And so in the process, they are in the process of doing that right now, of identifying targets, figuring out what everybody's going to do, moving all the pieces into place. It's a very, very complex operation. And so it's no surprise that it hasn't kicked off yet. It's not a failure on the part of the IDF. It's actually a success on the part of the IDF that they didn't just go out of rage and out of emotion or out of political expediency, because the people want this to happen. The people want something done. And so the politicians just send people in without any coherent plan. They are making a coherent plan, and they're going to execute it when the time is right. Now, you asked, do I think it'll start in the next few days? Yes, I do think it'll start in the next few days, because one of the generals gave a big hoorah speech down in the South today to all his troops, and he said it would start very, very soon. And so I believe him. I believe it will start very soon. And so we will see what happens at that point. Well, how is the morale? Lisa Machinsky asks, how is the morale of the IDF with the ground war looming? Well, the morale of the IDF is serious, and they are grim, but they are determined. And in some sense, they're young kids, and they're in their 20s, and they're meeting up with all their friends from school again in the Army, and all their old Army buddies and things like that. And so there's almost a spring break atmosphere in some sense to it. But it's spring break where everybody's in uniform and they have long faces and they're very serious. So they're not making light of anything. They are making very serious of everything, and they know what's coming. But as I've talked to them one after the other, especially today, I went and talked with a bunch of guys from the Israeli version of West Point. You know, they're cream of the crop officers. And those guys are being pulled out of the schooling before they actually get their commissions and are being sent to lead troops into battles. And I never thought that would happen. But they are ready, and they are raring for a fight. Those guys are not... I've not seen anybody say we shouldn't be doing this. Everybody understands that this is an existential question for Israel, and that it's something that they absolutely have to do. Okay, so let's see what else here. How are the hospitals and medical facilities doing? I have not personally been to any of the hospitals, but from what I've been told, they are setting up field hospitals all around near where the front lines would be, both in the north and in the south, and they are heavily stocking those now. The United States is calling up 2,000 troops and sending them into Israel. All of those 2,000 troops will be medical personnel and will not be combat personnel at this point. So we are sending people to help with the medical issues, and they are gearing up, and they're opening the stockpiles, and everybody's ready. That's one way you can tell how well trained and equipped an army is by looking at the medical equipment that each individual soldier is given. And for example, in Ukraine, I was there for 6 months last year, and there were times when a lot of people were donating individual first aid kits, or IFAKs they're called, to the Ukrainian military. But when they would capture Russian soldiers and capture their equipment, you look at what they are given they were being given as far as medical equipment, and the individual Russian soldiers were literally being given equipment that was packed. I'm talking bandages that had the date they were packed, and it was packed in the late 1940s and early 1950s. They were given just a cheap leather belt as a tourniquet, things like that. So looking at what the Israeli troops have got, I'll just tell you these guys are well trained and well equipped when it comes to individual first aid kits. And let's hope they all know how to use them, and let's hope that none of them end up having to use them. Okay, what is another question here? I'm not telling movement of troops. I'm not to say that there are lots and lots of troops in Israel is not telling bad people anything they don't need to know. Everybody knows there are lots and lots of troops in Israel. I'm not giving away any specific locations. There are people in the north, there are people in the south, and that's no surprise to anybody. So believe me, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know how to tell the news without giving away anything that's OPSEC, any operational security. Do we need nurses? Thank you. That's nice of you, Helen. I don't know. I've not heard anything about them putting out a call for medical people. Although I did see one thing where they said if you wanted to come, they were going to fast track a permission process for medical personnel from outside the country to come in and help. So I'll have to look into that. And what I'll try to do then, if I can find something about it, I'll make a quick YouTube short video about how to do that, or I'll talk about it tomorrow on an update if I get around to doing that, okay? Do I think we're in Ezekiel prophecy? I am not an expert on Ezekiel prophecy, but it sure feels prophetic being here. I'm sorry, brave soul, if you feel like prayer hasn't done squat to help, you're not praying enough, because I've seen it so many times, even today, where prayer has made a difference. I could sit here and talk to you for hours about how much prayer has made a difference in my life and in my job. I've been a war correspondent. I've covered every major conflict for the past 2 decades. I've spent years of my life in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in combat. I've been to Syria multiple times. I've been to Lebanon. I've been to every terrorist country on the planet save North Korea. And I can tell you, prayer makes a difference. If you really want to know, send me a private message. Go over to my personal YouTube channel. It's called The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. And send an email to me, hotzoneholton@gmail.com. And if you want to hear some stories about how prayer has changed my life and has saved my life as I've been a war correspondent over the last 20 years, I would love to talk to you about that, because prayer is effective. I promise you. It makes a big difference. I'm in Australia, feel a lot better. Jessica feels better that Biden went here. Let me, as far as Americans coping with this will affect America. I don't want to get into all the political, tribal divisions and all that about it. But what I will say is that all of the Israelis that I've talked to here are very grateful for America's help. They're very grateful for the warships that are just off the coast. They're very grateful for the ammunition stockpiles that we already had here that are being opened up and given out to the Israelis. They were not very happy, I think, with the results of President Biden's visit. And that's because President Biden's visit was not simply to express support for the Israeli people. If anything, what I'm being told, I could go through it here. I've actually got a whole bullet point list of what is reportedly what was part of President Biden's message to the Israeli government when he came and met with them yesterday. And it was not all good. A lot of it was about that America will not support Israel if it decides to occupy the Gaza Strip. America will require Israel to allow lots and lots of aid to be brought into the Gaza Strip. America is trying to put boundaries and curbs on on Israel's response to this terror attack of October 7th. And a lot of people here feel like what President Biden did yesterday was essentially make it impossible for Israel to achieve its stated goal of destroying Hamas, of dismantling Hamas for good, and making sure that they can never be a threat again. Now, so I can talk more about that if you like, but let me see if there's any more questions. How's Iron Dome handling incoming rockets? That's a good question, Lisa. Iron Dome is an amazing system, and it's not just the Iron Dome system that's deployed here. We have Patriot missile batteries that Israel has, that Israel owns, that are here taking missiles out of the sky and rockets out of the sky. And there's a couple of new technologies. One of them is called David's sling, you know, like the sling that David used to kill Goliath, that is very effective at shooting down missiles. And there is another experimental thing that has come up that's I forget the name of it, it's like iron ray or something like that, but it's actually a laser that shoots rockets out of the sky. And there was video of it online in use the other day. It's amazing. What's most amazing about it is how incredibly efficient it is, because each one of those Iron Dome rockets costs, I'm told, about $50,000. And so to take a rocket out of the sky costs them like $50,000 a pop every time. But this laser system, which is straight out of Star Wars, costs like $2 a shot to take missiles out of the sky, and is very effective. So obviously far more efficient, really amazing. But I also wanted to say, are you gonna go on here real quick? You got 15 minutes? You got here right now? Okay, I'll wrap it up. We've got other journalists here that everybody's trying to do their thing, so I've got to wrap it up. I really appreciate all of your questions. We'll do this again. It looks like it's pretty popular. If you like what we're doing, please let us know. Make sure you subscribe. You can follow me in my personal reporting, kind of behind the scenes stuff that I do over on my YouTube page, Hot Zone it's called the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton. And so the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton, you can find me there. You can go to chuckholton.locals.com and follow my writing and my reporting and everything that I do, not just what I do for CBN over there. You're welcome to do that, but please give to CBN. All of this reporting is expensive, and we desperately need your support in every way, shape, and form, especially your prayers. Your prayers are the most you can do, not the least you can do. So please keep praying. Thanks for watching. We'll be back on again tomorrow. God bless you. Take care.